just because it's the same price as our audio.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, well, it's the same price.
Is your,
Yeah, my.
can you turn your
Forward facing price,
speaker and
like
mic
that
off?
is because it's the only way
Yeah,
to get
my
a
mic's
college
off.
to actually make it cheaper for us.
Test one,
Because what
two,
happens is
three.
the same forward facing price, then you
Yeah.
get a stipend for the work that's not taxable. Because it's, you pay basically the amount of money you get 45 hours of school every week. And so
Test one, two,
the
three.
tax is Oscar was just cheaper upfront, and then the college would actually
Test
reduce your
one, two,
financial aid, financial need based aid, by how much,
Test one, two, three. Test one, two, three.
Yes, so all the people who pay their full wage bill, they would need this aid after. Was to make it so that Oscar was less profitable for students. Right. It's more profitable. And so now we have it rated where that's. So it's not upfront, but it's cheaper longer. But actually, if you talk to Oscar, you can get it upfront. So, yes. Yeah, it's more flexible than it might seem.
Come to email again and then try to talk to like a head honcho person and be like.
Yes.
Because if you guys have spaces, I don't know. Sure.
Yeah. I'll also give you the email for honcho people if you're interested.
Okay.
COB discussion. Yes, because that should happen. I haven't done waitlist stuff yet, so I don't know.
I really guys, we should join our meetings and.
I'm not sure if it's rolling, I'm not sure if it's like they have a date.
See, that's the problem. It's like.
Most I would know is just have a look at the Oscar website, but I already done that, so you're like. Communication much?
I knew you wanted to do.
Right now, I do want to take notes. I'm just trying to figure out why don't I have it up on the
Yeah, I
screen?
don't know, like, you are in the screen.
Yeah.
This is just like waiting till spots open. You, now it says something.
Oh.
I think it's HDMI 2 is the issue. That's what's the.
I don't know, it's like.
No, I
get
get
it.
It's always this one.
I was horrible at that stuff, like my tuition is like.
It's not yet,
Is there, there's nothing on, is it on, is like that's the question.
Well, are you responsible for paying it?
So then what do you mean, what do you want to do? Just accept.
Oh, there it is.
Great, all right, that is perfect.
I have to
I
work
don't
out.
know what's still waiting.
Yes, maybe.
Who are we missing? Are we missing people? We're missing
Jane is gonna be here.
Yeah, I was like, she was in our class this morning.
Yeah, and she was saying how she was not excited to present twice in a day, just like Anna did. So,
Got another presentation. Let's see.
Yeah, but that first one was 10 minutes individual. At least this is like 6 minutes
Yeah,
partner.
so,
Professor,
yes,
could you record, or I mean, not record, like time us?
right, I can time you. I did not bring my little card. Should I go up and grab that or should I just flag you?
I thought just.
I'll flag you like this.
Raise your phone up.
Maybe like, I'll flag you when you got one.
Put the flashlight on.
Yes.
Two fingers when there's 2 minutes left, one finger when there's 1 minute left, and this symbol when there's half of left, and then this when it's done.
There's too many symbols. I'll give you just numbers when you got 1 minute left and then I'll give you 0 when you have 0 minutes left. So you get 0
I saw that.
all right, so,
She's gonna stop my.
we will count on Jane getting here. You guys are not first, so it's all good. Let me just say a couple things before we start, and that is that you guys have practiced this talk a lot, but I realize you've done some different things for today. I want us to sort of focus our feedback on the new things that you're doing, and particularly, as I mentioned in my email, on the hook start, how you're going into this thing, so that we can give you feedback on that, because that's a new component of this talk. So, I expect, as usual, some people will be rough. You learn from the being rough. but obviously do the best you can. And if you need to look at prompts, that's fine. I think we all understand that the less prompts you use in the final presentation, the better, but yeah.
Lily and I were talking about this before class, but because I was like, Kendall's a 33-minute walk away from campus.
Yes, I meant to say, I have a bus. I will be picking you guys up here. I have a college van for this purpose. Yeah, right. So
What time are we supposed to, should we be there?
right, we are starting, what does the syllabus say?
12:30.
12:30, so 12:15 it will leave here.
Okay.
The driveway right on this side, yes.
I have a bus that ends at 12:15.
Well, yeah, I was like, Lily and I are gonna have to leave. one
Yeah,
of
we
our
also,
classes
Anna and
early.
I are in the same class that also doesn't end until 12:15, but we can probably leave early.
I think he'll end
So a
early.
couple minutes early, because what I don't wanna do is show up there and super rushed,
But 12:15
I want us to be
here.
able to,
Could you swing by King and like get people who are just getting out of a class?
I worry about, I mean, I can do that, I worry a little bit, I mean, I can do that. So we
Or like, maybe we
leave
could
here
meet in the
at,
King
we
parking
leave
lot.
here at 12:15. And we'll show up at King whenever we show up at King, but we will be right on that corner of we will be sitting on Tappan Square,
Or we could all meet in the King parking lot
Oh,
to be more central.
I could do that if that's better for people. You mean the Rice parking lot,
Yeah.
really, the one that's in front of Dascom?
Yes.
Yeah, I could do that, that's fine, if that's better, that's probably a better place to just meet everyone, yes.
When do we have to be at Kendal? Like, in order to have enough time to like prepare for presentation, like when do you want us to be at Kendal? I'm considering going independently so I can get
You
food
want-
at my co-op.
You wanna go independently?
Yeah.
I think you need to be there at, I'd say 7 minutes before,
Which is,
we start at 12:30, so.
12:23.
Okay.
Yeah.
gotcha.
Who else is, okay, so we just agreed, we're going to do the pickup in the Rice parking lot. Everyone understand that, no confusion on that. Are there people just so we know, are there people other than Max who plan to go independently to get there, just so that we know about that? Okay, so the rest of you, I will all see there, okay, that's good. Right, so, I mean, you know what the athletic fans look like, that's what we'll be in. All right, any more logistical questions?
Are we meeting Thursday? That would be
Thursday, yes,
Yeah.
no, Thursday,
No,
Yeah, classes are over on Wednesday.
yeah, classes are over on Wednesday, right, so we're not meeting Thursday, no, so that's,
That's our last.
that is our final class, yes, and I will say some logistic things after we're done with this today. Yes, do you have a question? That's not a hand. All right, are we ready to roll? Is everyone ready to roll?
Yep.
Just make sure.
Do you guys have?
We're check 1, 2, check 1, 2. Yes, looks like that.
that's pretty quick.
So just to remind all of you, there is a space for feedback in that document underneath each of your presentation titles and members, so it's all set for that. Yes,
And just to confirm, same structure as before, we have 5 minutes for our presentation, or do we have a little?
we actually have 6 minutes for our
6
presentation.
minutes, thank
Yeah, I think I said yeah, 6 minutes for your presentation, so one more minute, to do a little bit of slush. It's like Good Morning Overland, where questions will be held to the end. Unlike Good Morning Overland, there will be more space for questions in this particular presentation, so hopefully we'll get some more feedback. All right, you guys ready to roll?
Yeah.
I'll be pretty quick here. Well, it is an enormous pleasure to be speaking before. So you guys are done. It's all set. Okay, cool. It's a great pleasure to be back at Kendal at Overland. We have now done this for several years. We're very enthusiastic about Kendal office, the Kendal community, and the engagement that Kendal people have. I hope you're excited about learning about what a group of Oberlin students are doing on campus, off campus, and in the larger Northeast Ohio region. Many of you have seen us present before. Just a few words about the dashboard project. We work on community-centered communication technology that's designed to connect members of the community, provide connective tissue between the many groups within the community that are engaged in positive, pro-community, pro-environmental initiatives. The dashboard system, which you have within your lobby, contains a variety of different applications. There's building dashboard, which displays resource use in individual buildings, citywide dashboard, which displays community level environmental conditions and energy and water use, community voices, which shares the actions that individuals and groups are taking within the community to bring about positive change, a community calendar, which I hope all of you are subscribed to. Various stories, and we'll get into that with one of our presentations. And then also each screen displays location-specific content that is about that particular installation. Here we actually have some content from one of our Cleveland installations, which we'll talk a little bit more about. So these digital signs that are installed throughout communities, Oberlin has 23 of these installed in schools and storefronts and Kendal and many other places, are a place where we present this information to the public. The schools all have dashboard displays in them. There's a phone app that lets you control those dashboard displays. And there's also content that's embedded in a variety of websites, such as the Experience Oberlin website, the city's website, as well as the environmental dashboard website. So the real stars of our presentation today are not me. There are students who've been working hard on various projects designed to advance the environmental dashboard project in Oberlin and elsewhere. And I will take no more time before I turn things over to our first group of presenters, who are going to talk a little bit about some of the new community voices content that they've been developed. So Lily and Hannah, you guys are on.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Lily Dodson.
And I'm Hannah Van.
Yeah, so as Dr. Peterson mentioned, there is a system around the town of Oberlin and on the Oberlin College campus called the Environmental Dashboard, and one component of the Environmental Dashboard is Community Voices, which is a picture of someone or something and a quote next to it with the goal of highlighting positive community engagement or positive action. And we have an overall question kind of driving this project, which is how can we effectively highlight the amazing collaboration between Oberlin College students and Oberlin residents? Next slide, please. So there's so much amazing collaboration going on between Oberlin College students and Oberlin College community members. Lots of Oberlin students volunteer in the community, and lots of Oberlin residents run organizations or own businesses that work with Oberlin College students. And here's an example of the content we've been creating with this goal in mind. This is Rosa, the volunteer coordinator at Oberlin Community Services. And yeah, the goal of this project was to put together content that highlights people who create positive change in the community in collaboration with students. And this project was originally inspired by some opportunities that we were given that Hannah will now talk to us about.
Yeah, so one of the main opportunities we were presented with, so there's a lot of student volunteers on campus, so we already had that interconnectedness between Oberlin College and the Oberlin community. So we had a big cesspool of people to interview from, and then the Office of Communications, they wanted more student-focused content, so they reached out to the Environmental Dashboard in order to get that content, and that's what we're providing them with. This is another example of what we've been doing. This is Stephanie. She is an Oberlin Community Service volunteer and Bill Long Foundation board member, and we really think her quote gets us into our opportunities. So Stephanie says, "It is crucial that if I'm going to be here for 4 years, that I'm truly here. For me, that means getting to know the other people that live here."
So this is the right order. Oh yeah, so some of the approaches that we took in achieving the goals of our project were, like Hannah mentioned, there are so many students on campus that volunteer in the community, and we know lots of our own friends who do this volunteer work, so we reached out to them. We reached out to community members that we know at places that we volunteer, or just people that we've met. And we also made a campus digest post, which is the system for Oberlin College students where daily we will get emails about different things going on around campus. But these approaches that we took presented us with a few challenges. One main challenge was a lack of response to our outreach and our campus digest post. And one way we addressed this was by doing a lot more direct outreach to people we knew, emailing. I'm part of a co-op, I emailed my whole co-op to get them engaged in this project. And another challenge we were presented with was pictures. A really important aspect of our project is having really compelling photos alongside the quotes we come up with. But often the circumstances we were interviewing people in weren't ideal for getting a good photo, or people didn't have good photos of themselves. And so really working hard to like source good, inspiring photos was a challenge we came across. And lastly, scheduling was a significant challenge. People are just incredibly busy and sometimes never available at the same times. But one way we worked to address this was by doing interviews a little more spontaneously. For example, when I was volunteering at OCS, when there was like a lull in activity, I would just stop people and interview them. And Hannah would interview people on her walk back from working at the Mad Factory.
And so one of our outcomes, so how we overcame some of these challenges, as Lily mentioned previously, we already had a lot of connections around campus, so that really helped us in getting people to be able to interview. And for photos, we were able to reach out to one of our collaborators, Sammy Singleton, and she found a couple compelling photos of people that we didn't really have a lot of great photos for, so she helped out a lot for that issue. And then, so in total, we conducted 21 interviews. 15 of these were from student volunteers, and 6 of these were for community members. And we recently wrapped these up, and we started these interviews at the beginning of November. So from this, we have produced some compelling and inspiring content. So far, we've created around 32 slides of content, and we're still in the process of creating more. So we will have plenty of content for the community voices. And yeah, so we should be wrapping up with this development in the next week and have all of our slides ready to go live on the community voices. And just to wrap this up, I felt like this was a really inspiring quote. Bella Saunders, she's an Oberlin Community Service volunteer, and she quoted Gandhi, and I felt like it fit very well with this. So Gandhi says, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And then she was like, I think that's really true.
Thank you so much. Now we're gonna pass it off to another group doing amazing work in the community at Langston Middle School, Luke and Sadie.
Hi everyone, I'm Sadie Howard.
And I'm Luke Moeller.
And our project was teaching a 7th grade science, technology, engineering, art, and math, or STEAM class at Langston Middle School about environmental dashboard. We did so by taking an assignment that we were given at the beginning of the term and adapting it into an engaging and age-appropriate lesson plan. This assignment introduces students to collecting data on resource consumptions, identifying patterns in those data, and then using the patterns that they identified to then draw conclusions, and hopefully motivate them to be more sustainable and take more actions towards resource conservation. Sustainability education is a very important but often overlooked part of many American curricula. By teaching this lesson in Langston, we aim to change this. Our goal is that this will help teachers and students alike to engage in more sustainable practices, and we hope the following presentation will be informative and enlightening.
Generally with this project, we have a central goal of helping students gain skills for better conserving resources. And for gaining these skills, we want to help them have the ability to lead positive change themselves in the unique setting of today's world. So just to start the lesson plan, we were introducing students to a key question: how much electricity and water is their school using? When electricity and water are available resources that you can just get at the push of a button, it's really hard to keep track of how much we've consumed each day. The structure of how we've made these resources available makes it incredibly challenging to be sustainable when using them. If we can't measure it, we can't manage them. What we see here is an example of how the environmental dashboard aims to address this issue. You can see what's called a data visualization. The environmental dashboard takes data that is records of how much electricity and water is being passed through a building, and it transforms it into some eye-catching graphs like you can see here. We, as humans, we have an easier time noticing patterns when data is shown with shapes and colors rather than just a bunch of numbers on a big chart. Here we can easily pick out, our eyes easily catch out that on weekends, electricity is much lower, and we can easily identify which sections of a school are using the most electricity. With our lesson plan, we wanted to teach students how to, once they have proficiency in recognizing these patterns, how to design solutions for sustainability in their schools based on the patterns that they were seeing.
Okay, so here we have two student examples. So to start the lesson plan off, we had students make hypotheses of what they thought the environmental dashboard would look like as of Sunday, November 10th and Monday, November 11th. So here we have two student examples of their hypotheses. And as you can see, they have an understanding, or they had a semblance of an understanding on how electricity usage worked, but there was still a lot of work to be done with them. And just having these examples here is really important because then you can see why our work is necessary, but also that students, 7th grade students, are a good age group, target age group, because they're coming in with some amount of knowledge and passion about how electricity usage works. And then just as a reference for how far off they were, this represents Sunday, December 1st and Monday, December 2nd. So you can see that, like, Luke, if you go back for a second, so you can see that they, understood enough to know that, obviously there would be more electricity usage on Monday, but they still overshot how much electricity was used on Sunday. And even though it's not reflected in this data, they also did mistakenly predict that the Oberlin City School District office would use more electricity than Langston Middle School.
So in our lesson plan, when we were teaching these kids, after introducing them to why resource conservation is so important for effectively addressing the issues of climate change, we had students go into this data and test whether the assumptions that they initially had about how much electricity and water was being used were accurate. We achieved this testing through what's called a kilowatt, which is a machine that lets students actively see how much electricity different devices use, as well as guiding them through self-guided exploration of the environmental dashboard's website, which anyone can access on a computer. And through all of this, they were able to develop skills in pattern recognition of electricity and water consumption.
So we have 3 main goals for this project. Our first goal is permanence. We want this lesson to keep being taught at Langston because we won't be here forever. And our next goal is improvement. We've gathered feedback from the students for this lesson, and also based on our own experiences, we want this lesson to be improved upon for future classes. And finally, we want students to come out of this lesson, students and teachers to come out of this lesson with a heightened awareness of resource flows and how they work. And we also want students to be more engaged with the environmental dashboard because it is such an awesome technology, and we want them to be able to use it and engage with it until they graduate from Oberlin City Schools. And having taught this lesson, we had 3 main outcomes. The first is that students actually were relatively engaged. Donna, the teacher that we were working with, said that students are not always engaged in the work they're doing in class, so we can tell that this is a topic that they're passionate about. Another outcome is that when teaching this lesson, we felt very rushed. We weren't able to get to everything we wanted to, so ideally next time we'd be in the classroom for a little longer. And finally, according to our feedback, the students love the kilowatt machine. You know, it's really fun to like get to switch things on and see lights flash, and it's a very like physical aspect, like machinery. Students don't get to work with that a lot. So in the future, we'd like to incorporate that more. And here's some student feedback. Erickson said that the part I found the most interesting was how much energy the school is using. It surprised me to learn that the school never stops using electricity. And Chan said the most interesting, surprising, and memorable part of the lesson was using the kilowatt machine to see energy consumption. This was interesting because I had never used a device that so clearly visualizes energy consumption. And then our main takeaways, having taught this lesson, is that so much trial and error was involved. We went through so many stages of editing. We had to start from scratch, and it's just, you know, it took a lot of grit to not be beat down by that. And you know, something that we'll certainly keep in mind next time we do this is to not be discouraged. Another thing that we learned was like working in a classroom setting. Even though we've had teaching experiences before, we never actually worked in a public school in a way more formal and structured environment. So that was something new that we learned, was how to work within the confines of like what the state standards required and what was expected of us from like a class that we were only guests in. And finally, how to use data as a communication tool, because finally we learned how to use data as a communication tool, because the data that environmental dashboard displays is very important, but it doesn't mean anything if it can't be properly communicated. So by doing this project, we learned how to communicate the importance of resource conservation by using the environmental dashboard data displays.
Looking back on our lesson as a whole, there's 3 lasting impacts that we were really striving to get out of teaching this lesson. The first is getting more people aware of the environmental dashboard as this amazing resource that's in the schools that can be extremely effective for helping people address unique sustainability challenges today. The second impact that we wanted to have was building this culture of engagement among students in the school with sustainability efforts. And we were really trying to intervene early in their education to build up this lasting commitment to being leaders on sustainability. And then finally, we just wanted people in Langston to be confident in engaging with the environmental dashboard and to be actively implementing it to better their schools. This last quote that we have just summarizes how we are trying to get students better engaged in Ecolympics, the school-wide resource reduction competition that is taught in April, through what we were teaching with this lesson plan. And overall, given the level of interest that we saw from students, we think we achieved this pretty well. And we'd now like to pass over to Sammy and Jane to talk about what they're doing here in Oberlin College.
You're 4 minutes over. I wasn't gonna cut you off, though. Very fair.
Can I refresh it maybe? I just added something.
Or
I don't know, would that be
yes,
too
you
much?
can. No, that's fine. You can do that.
I actually think it would be. I don't really know how to work this, so.
I think
If you just escape
Yeah,
and then hit refresh, you'll be fine.
Okay.
And we'll just pause for a second.
Big infrastructure changes are happening at Oberlin College. But now that the construction is coming to a close and the campus is restored to its normal appearance, the need to inform the campus community about sustainability initiatives is more imperative than ever. I am Sammy Aponovich.
I'm Jane Shima.
And our project involves a prototype display meant to explain sustainability infrastructure, initiatives, and tips to the whole of the Oberlin College campus community in order to promote a more eco-friendly campus. Our display is digital and is shown on screens. It is composed of three main components: text, animations, and data visualizations, which serve to help viewers understand data by translating it from a technical form to a non-technical form. As a final product, the display will be mounted on the wall at popular locations around campus. We have two different ways that a viewer can interact with and control the display. In addition to being digital, our display is interactive. Viewers can scan the QR code on our poster and pull up the controller on their phone. Alternatively, there is a physical controller in the form of a touchscreen iPad. Viewers can select any of our topics: heating and cooling, energy, water, climate, transportation, and food and land, to learn about these concepts concerning the college in the form of a short, simple story. Our display is being developed so that people can learn about Oberlin's sustainability projects and why they're significant. Right now, we are in the prototype stage of our display. Flash is exemplifying this prototype quality as he tells the viewer that live data for this slide is coming soon. We ultimately aim to find out what the campus community needs to be more clear, engaging, and helpful to further develop the display. This means seeing what students, faculty, parents, visitors, and alumni all think about the prototype.
Our project will result in a written report that provides our observations and suggestions about this current prototype that we have. And using the evidence that we've gained from all of our user testing sessions with all these different people around campus, we will ultimately be advising the design team about where to go next with this project to make it better. We will answer our central questions, which are: one, is the messaging of the display clear and effective to its audience? And then secondly, what should be done to make it more effective? Okay, well, as of now, we have shown the display to several audiences, including alumni, the admissions office, and student tour guides to get their input. We anticipate that admissions is going to be really central in promoting the display to visitors as a way to show off Oberlin's sustainability accomplishments and goals. We also conducted a user testing activity with parents, which was a little bit more experimental and was kind of like a precursor to all of our individual user testing sessions. Finally, this brings us to the last part of our process. We recruited around 20 students over the course of like a week and a half for individual user testing. We do a brief activity with them where they get to explore the digital story content, and then they fill out a form about what they think. From there, we need to assess what feedback we've gotten and make note of like any trends we're seeing, which we will ultimately use in crafting the final report. Some trends that we're noticing so far are that the use of empathetic characters, Flash, are very popular with almost all audiences. We've also gotten the feedback that the display can do more to emphasize student involvement, because at this point, 13 students have worked directly on developing the display, and 60 students and former students have contributed to the design elements and assessment. Finally, people want to see more that the actionable tips on the display become more visible. People want to know what kinds of things they can do in their everyday lives to help Oberlin achieve carbon neutrality. I think transition. Okay, no, I'll do this one. So to reiterate, we've been talking with diverse groups of people about how to make this media as accessible as possible, and we've been listening to their visions for what this dashboard could be used for to improve the college community. So thank you. The next group to present is working on another medium to communicate about our sustainability initiatives at Oberlin. So please welcome Josette and Emmy.
How can we represent a carbon neutral Oberlin? This is a question Josette and I have been thinking a lot about as we plan a redevelopment of the sustainability display case in the Oberlin College Science Center. Oberlin College has a pledge to be carbon neutral by 2025, which is soon approaching. We want to use this display case as an opportunity to put information about different campus initiatives and conservation opportunities together in a clear and interesting way.
So as you can see, the display case contains numerous components, which includes common dorm appliances, artifacts from Oberlin's geothermal heating and cooling system, as well as posters about Oberlin's sustainability initiatives. Now, if you're feeling overwhelmed by looking at this image, don't worry. This is exactly why we're redeveloping the display to be more consumable, cohesive, visually appealing, and informative. Throughout our presentation, Nev and I will walk you through the changes we're making to the display and show you some exciting mock-ups of what we've been working on and what the display will look like once it's been redeveloped.
Here is our current mock-up of our display case. We've divided it up into more clear sections, included a digital screen, and created a title. We'll walk you through each component of this display. What we really want to do is, with this case, is convey that Oberlin has the goal of being a carbon neutral campus, and each section of the display is important to conveying that goal.
All right, so here you can see the background we've designed to integrate into the case as an alternative to the plain background you saw earlier. This is a more colorful and eye-catching background and actually related to different sections of our display here with the geothermal heating and cooling system, the light bulb over there communicating electricity usage, and better communicates the course of action. Sorry. We've also decided on the title, A Carbon Neutral Oberlin, as this accurately conveys the overall mission of the geothermal system, as well as communicates the course of action students can take to help Oberlin meet this goal.
We also would like to use Flash and Wally as communicators of this information. Flash and Wally are what are called empathetic character gauges, which are used in data visualizations the college has to demonstrate resource use. For example, they express happy emotions when resource use is high, or resource use is low, and sad emotions when resource use is high. We want to have them in different sections of the display case, conveying information for us rather than using posters with dense information. We also hope that using these cute characters will make the information a little bit more interesting and exciting to read.
Okay, so our first section of the display will feature common appliances found in student dorms. So the numbers you see here on these tags are the appliance's real electricity consumption, and these numbers are displayed in the case right now. These numbers were calculated using a kilowatt meter, which you can see over there on the screen, which will be displayed in the case and rotate through each appliance and display the amount of energy each appliance is using. We have an exciting system that will spotlight the appliance currently being measured by the meter and hope to integrate this into the display by the end of the semester.
On the right side of the case, we will have artifacts from Oberlin's geothermal heating and cooling system, like piping, drill bits, and insulation. We will label these to make it clear what each artifact is and what its function is in the system. As you may know, there was a lot of construction to create this new system, but people don't really know what the system looks like or how it functions. So we really want to show kind of the pieces of the system from the inside, because this system is largely underground. It's not something many people are paying attention to. So by bringing it to people's attention, we hope to convey that the work done on this heating system is important to larger sustainability goals.
All right, in the case, a resource use orb is on display, but is currently inactive. The next group will detail the function of the resource use orbs for you guys, but our goal through displaying the orb in the case is to illustrate real-time resource use trends to students and encourage sustainable behavior.
The final central piece of this display is the environmental dashboard. This display includes stories about things like heating, energy, and electricity, as well as live data the last group explained to you. In each section of the display case we previously mentioned, you'll have a QR code that will navigate you to a specific story on the dashboard so you can learn more. This will also be helpful to streamline the information instead of using posters, and most of the information will be on the dashboard screen in front of you.
All right, so one of our goals this semester is writing a final report to explain our approach to redesigning the display and our rationale for doing so. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we want to integrate that spotlight and meter that we've developed. And finally, this semester, we hoped to reorganize the components of the dorm appliances to be less cluttered and thus easier to consume. We don't have much time left in the semester to finish the display, but we plan to carry over this work into the next semester. And finally, our broad goal is to create a more environmentally conscious student and community population. Thank you guys so much. We're now gonna pass things off to Max and Jasmine, who are gonna tell you a little bit more about what they're doing with the resource use orbs. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want you to imagine a future where you can see how much resources your home is using just from a glowing light. Well, you don't have to imagine anymore. I'm Jasmine,
I'm Max.
and we'll be presenting on user testing and promotion of orbs that display relative resource consumption. Oberlin College is the only college to have environmental orbs. My first encounter with the environmental orbs was when I was walking through Oberlin College campus as a prospective student. Walking into the Adam Joseph Lewis Center for Environmental Studies for the first time, our tour guide explained the purpose of the orbs. These were installed in all of our dorms to show the difference between the building's current use of energy and water and its average use. Hopefully, it would encourage students to think about and decrease their resource use. To accomplish this task, each orb receives minute-by-minute data sent from metering technology in its building and displays it on a 5-point scale.
So in 2007, these orbs were introduced and installed throughout campus by Oberlin faculty and students. And since then, the technology used to run them has become out of date. And so while we're updating the technology, we took the opportunity to upgrade their comprehensibility to students. And so how they work now that we've upgraded it is to communicate energy use. The orb will first show you a full spectrum of all the colors at the top right there. It'll start with red, which means there's way more energy use than there normally is. Move through orange to yellow, which is normal energy use. And then through light green to dark green, which is, there's a lot less energy use than there typically is, which is awesome. And then once it shows you that whole spectrum, it'll land on the color that best represents the current resource use. And then after a minute or so, it'll move on to show you the water spectrum as well. It'll go through the whole spectrum, every color, starting with purple or pink, it's bright pink, which is like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. Blue, which is normal, and all the way through to icy blue, which is way less water than normal. And then it will land on the one that best represents the current water use. And so that's a bit different than how the orbs communicated the same information last year and before. And so now we need to know, do students get it? Do they understand what the orbs are communicating? And so we're going to do we already did user testing to figure that out.
So our user testing was run in 3 stages. The first task we did was gather a group of 25 students to participate in our experiment. And the experiment is meant to answer these 3 questions. Number 1, do students understand orb colors? So the students were shown a series of colors for electricity and water. Then it would land on a color on a 5-point scale, and we would ask what resource color this represents. The next question we asked is, will students seek out more information? And we asked participants to narrate their thoughts while playing around with the orbs, and we will see if they would scan the QR code on the poster without our instruction. And the last question we set out to answer is, how does the orb impact resource use? And we decided to approach this by first giving the students a survey at the beginning, asking them about their mood and how often they think about energy and water use before interacting with the orb. Then at the end, another survey was given, asking the same plus additional questions to the beginning survey. This data is able to gauge if the orb encouraged students to think about their resource use more.
So now that we've done this project, we've answered all our questions. And so first off, we've made a color scale for energy and for water that students understand. We did this by actually changing the lower 2 watercolors. If you look right now, they're going to change. And so we changed the lower 2 watercolors. And then also, you notice we made the fish icons there a little bit smaller so people could see the colors easier. They were more obvious. And so with this color scale, 74% of the time, students understood exactly which color the orbs were communicating. And so, okay, sorry, you changed the thing. And so in addition, when looking at the QR code, did students scan it? The answer was actually most of the time, no. Less than half the students actually scanned the QR code. But then when we got to our survey questions, we found that most students, 20 out of 25, said they had increased interest in their energy and water consumption by the end of it. And so all of this information that we've gathered will make the orbs ready for being deployed across campus next spring, which all the students we talked to were really excited about. And then with more research in the future, we are looking forward to hopefully there being installations maybe in the Oberlin town, maybe even the Cleveland area, maybe even across the world. The future of the orbs looks very bright. And so now I'd like to turn it over to the next group who's doing some work in one of those places I just mentioned, Cleveland.
Welcome, guys.
Good afternoon. My name is Tobias Wells Zimmerman,
And I'm Audrey Sherbin.
and our project is titled Enhancing and Updating the Cleveland Environmental Dashboard Stories. We would like to start off our presentation by posing a simple question to you all. What does a resilient community look like in the face of climate change? For us, effective environmental messaging on a community-wide level is critically important in increasing scientific literacy on environmental issues and building community resilience. Within this project, we've been working alongside the Great Lakes Science Center and an organization called Midtown Cleveland Incorporated in order to deepen the environmental knowledge of Cleveland residents through an exhibit called the Cleveland Environmental Dashboard. Audrey will now provide some background information on this exhibit.
The Cleveland Environmental Dashboard was developed in 2018 by Oberlin College faculty and students as an interactive public exhibit at the Great Lakes Science Center, whose mission is to make science, technology, engineering, and math come alive. The physical exhibit contains a story content screen, which combines real-time data with narrative and visual content to illuminate the Cleveland area's resource consumption and local environmental conditions. In 2021, a series of community dashboards were launched in partnership with Midtown Cleveland Incorporated, another organization with the mission to leverage Cleveland's diverse assets to develop a dynamic neighborhood that unites the city's downtown and innovation districts. Midtown Cleveland itself sits at the intersection of a diverse network of neighborhoods and is made of majority low-income and POC residents, businesses, and stakeholders. While Great Lakes Science Center's Cleveland Environmental Dashboards focuses on the environmental dimensions of sustainability, the Midtown Dashboard seeks to place higher emphasis on the social and economic dimensions of community development, resilience, development, sustainability, and resilience. The Midtown Community Dashboard consists of 5 interactive screens and locations across the city and a page on their website. While Midtown's website features real-time data on Cleveland's air and water quality, it does not contain any Cleveland Environmental Dashboard story content. Furthermore, the digital signage of Midtown's dashboards also lacks the same environmental dashboard content. As it currently stands, the Great Lakes Science Center's dashboard is also in need of updates to enhance user engagement. Reviews from the environmental dashboard team have indicated that at times, some graphics and terminology could be within the stories have been confusing and could be improved to better convey the environmental dashboard's central message. This gap of environmental knowledge in Midtown now presents a unique opportunity to take the relevant information from Great Lakes Science Center's dashboard and apply it to the digital signage and website for the Midtown Community Dashboard. Through enhancing and supporting effective environmental communication in both the Great Lakes Science Center and Midtown, we hope to further ongoing efforts in developing a more sustainable and resilient Cleveland through educating, engaging, motivating, and empowering audiences to take environmental actions.
Our desired outcomes are the following. To update and revise the Great Lakes Science Center's environmental dashboard content. Then add Cleveland Environmental Dashboard story content to the Midtown Cleveland website to create a greater and more remotely accessible reach across Midtown. And deepen environmental knowledge in Midtown residents to promote positive environmental behaviors and build climate resilience. It is our hope that by producing a more user-friendly interface, we will increase engagement and pique interest within the Great Lakes Science Center's patrons and community members. Our ultimate goal is that our projects can increase the knowledge and interest in environmental issues and promote climate resilience through environmentally conscious behaviors within the Midtown and Cleveland community. We have a three-pronged approach. Firstly, we have leveraged feedback from the past environmental communication classes to edit and refine current environmental dashboard content. This includes edits to both graphics and text. Second, we've identified information from the Great Lakes Science Center environmental dashboard that is relevant to the Midtown Cleveland community and mission. And lastly, we've generated updated content that is applicable to both the Great Lakes Science Center and Midtown Cleveland environmental dashboards. Over the course of the semester, we've spent time sifting through past year's feedback on the story slides, determining what has been communicated well in addition to what must be altered. Throughout our project, we've also been collaborating with Madeline Faubert, Head of Design and Media at the partner organization and environmental dashboard developer Community Hub.
Our final products consist of 2 complete documents. The first contains a document of compiled and summarized feedback based on 3 years of reviews on the Cleveland Environmental Dashboard story content slides given by prior environmental communication classes. The second is a document of suggested revisions to the Cleveland Environmental Dashboard that provides an in-depth review of each individual story and specifies both text and graphical revisions to each slide. Lastly, our suggested revisions will include an assessment on whether story content from the Great Lakes Science Center's dashboard is applicable to the Midtown's community dashboard and mission. If content is not applicable, we have also provided further suggested revisions on how to alter text, graphics, and data visualizations to appeal to Midtown audiences. Through presenting our products to Madeline Faubert, we intend for her to utilize these suggested revisions for final implementation at both the Great Lakes Science Center and Midtown. Thank you.
I think we're the last group.
Oh, right, you guys are the last group. Thank you. All right, cool. Do you guys need to do a transition to an end? Let's talk about that this week. Yeah, you need to figure out.
How was our
transition out. Yeah, no, you guys were okay. You were almost exactly spot on.
So are they gonna be like ending all the presentations, or are you gonna come back up and say something?
I can come back up. Well, we should figure that out. I think, but either way, we need to do a transition. We need to figure out how to run that transition. Yeah, we could do it either way. All right, good stuff. Do you wanna grab your laptop out, or do you
I don't care. I was just-
Okay, do you wanna, why don't you go up there and take the driver's seat and, but you need a chair probably, or take your computer, you wanna you sit next to me and then you can. So you can keep it plugged in. All right, so let's just do, let's just give folks some quick feedback. How do we wanna do this?
Probably just like group
Go in
by
order.
group, yeah.
Let's do it group by group, but why don't we do a quick go around, which is just things you noticed overall that you thought went well or could have been worked on, or yeah, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I was just curious how long Hannah and our
I
presentation
think
was.
we're right on time.
I think you were everyone
You guys were exact.
everyone was basically on time except you guys and you guys
I-
weren't.
I
Okay,
remember like
thank
you
you.
guys finishing
Yeah,
and like you were like getting done. And then the timer went off like literally
Oh,
like
wow.
half a second.
Okay,
you guys were
You guys were like.
So we'll go around in a circle, but you have anything else to say, Hannah? So this is
Yeah.
just overall feedback. This is not feedback on individual presentation, unless there's something in particular that stuck out to you, Rebecca, but we're still on. You can go out.
Yeah, I was noticing that I think we need to be thinking more about how to speak in a way that is good for a Kendal audience, because they're all senior citizens and some of them are probably hard of hearing, or just like it'll be harder for them to process a lot of information being thrown at them at once. So just like speaking loudly and slower is gonna be really important.
Very, very
important.
Yeah, cause I noticed like most of us were speaking pretty fast and some of us were mumbling a little bit. So just like making sure to not do that.
Yes, okay. And again, just a thought, and you could pass if you want. This is overall comments, general comments, not specific comments.
This is not targeted at this one, even though it's gonna seem like it is. I feel like add more color to your slides. A lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of groups could benefit from that. I think the Science Center display, when you guys didn't have visuals on screen, it was very like white. And I just think that this, you know, these, the audience we're presenting to may also be a little visually impaired, so just like colorful, bolded fonts, like make your presentation fun to look at. It's not like, you know, it's professional, but not like, it's not a business presentation, it doesn't have to be sterile. And also, I think that this is an audience that wants to see personality from us, just because I feel like, you know, people at Kendal are oftentimes very charmed by Oberlin students, so I think they would want to see us having fun with our presentations and not trying to look like we're actually presenting to like a group of stakeholders.
Yeah, we're gonna go, you, okay, and you get one pointed, but we're
I
generally just doing.
just wanna emphasize Sadie saying that people at Kendal are like charmed by Oberlin students, like a lot of Kendal residents are former professors. And so like, that is, yeah, just think about that.
I agree with what Louise said about talking so loud, even though I didn't do it this time. But I was talking to Max before we were presenting, I was like, talk like you have molasses in your mouth. Cause I presented at Kendal before and it was like for a show, and then my director, she was really like homing me in, talk slower, talk slower, talk slower. So yeah, I think, and also projecting, obviously, talk loud and talk slow. Are we gonna have mics?
I'm not sure, because we're not talking in the room that we normally speak in. I don't know. I can't actually tell you anything about the room. I'll try to find something out from my contact with Kendal about details on the room, so I can share that with you, but it's not a room that I presented in before.
Yeah, then we have to like really project our voice then, and kind of like our voice is like a tunnel opening open. We have to really gather the room.
I really just enjoy seeing how everyone really played around with their slides and like the design of them. I think personality is really shown through, and it like I think helped all of us. That being said, I think there's room for improvement from all of us, and now that we've kind of shown our voices through our slides, now we can refine what we have to make it stronger as a presentation.
Yeah, I think overall, what I was really, our voices for the most part were really, really strong. And then it was a little bit of body language, I felt like was where we could definitely improve. Like how we were interacting with the screen, and when we were gesturing to certain parts of it on like certain sections of our images. I know we're still rehearsing, so like I'm not faulting you for holding a computer if you were holding a computer, but more just thinking about how the space you're taking up in the room is purposeful for your presentation.
Yeah, kind of just echoing what Josette said, I really liked seeing how everyone was like playing around with their slides. Yeah, and
I was gonna say, before Sadie's comment that like people looked more professional, like the slides look more professional, but now I'm like, maybe like that's not what we're aiming for. It is to some extent, but things were really cleaned up. I feel like bullets were shortened, pictures were bigger sometimes, and there was no bullets, and I appreciated it.
I think like overall, maybe like the sentences could be like shorter, like content could be simplified.
Sorry.
Just, oh no, I
Cutting
think
you right
like,
out there.
I think like the strongest moments are when like we're kind of like addressing the audience directly.
when like Josette and Nev were like, if you're looking at this display and feeling like overwhelmed, don't worry, because like I just thought that was very like hands-holdy in like the best way, and I think like the hand holding is going to like keep them engaged.
Pat?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with James, like what James said, definitely there's text that's gone down, but it still needs to go down and even more, and the text like was mentioned before, it just needs to be bigger because we have to remember, these are older people, so like you really have to make it like kind of just like really big, cause there's like still some empty spaces within presentation, so what I noticed among like most people's presentations is you talked more about what it was versus the progress you've done. And I feel like this presentation is supposed to be different than what we've done because we're talking about what we have done now. And then like our hopes for like the future or whatever, like, so I feel like it was just, was not super engaging when we were just like talking about, this is what I hope to do. Cause like, I mean, maybe it's just cause I've heard the presentation 1,000 times, it feels like, but yeah, and then I was gonna say one other thing. Oh, hooks. I can't remember a lot of people's hooks or if people even had hooks. And I think part of the problem is you don't have, I feel like I really like what Lily and I did because I feel like having a specific slide for your hook question is gonna be something that people at Kendal are gonna remember more, because not only do they have the words you're saying, but they have a visual with it too. So they're more likely to like remember that. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Oh,
You don't have to go,
Um,
but you can.
no, yeah, I also want to talk about hooks. I definitely like, I don't know, I guess my question is, I've seen this on a lot of the feedback with like hooks that start out with questions, you have to give the audience time to think, but I'm like wondering like how much is an appropriate time, or how much time is appropriate after like a hook with a question, and if it is a hook with a question, like it should that be like an audience engagement moment, or would that be too long?
I'll respond to that last part directly. We definitely don't have time to engage the audience because it's uncertain how they would engage, and once you get into it, you have no idea where you're gonna go. So it has to be a pause, but it cannot be a genuine.
Like a few
They'll
seconds.
have time afterward, it just wouldn't.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, like, if we pause, like, what if people start raising their hands?
You say,
No questions.
we hope
No
we're gonna,
questions, please.
we hope we're gonna answer this question with our talk. And we'd love to get questions from you afterwards, is what you said. You wanna.
I do want to say something to what you said about text size. Yes and no. Some of you guys had text that was, I think, way too big and made it really hard to take anything away. But again, keeping in mind our audience, we want them to be able to read what's on the screen. And so finding that middle ground, and I think centering things is really important. So, yeah.
We're still, Tobias, you get a last, actually I get the last one always, but you get second to last.
I think I'll pass.
Okay, you wanna say
I
something?
just had a quick response also to Hannah, like talking about the hook. Also, I think, like for me and Josette, in particular, like our hook kind of like is like right at the beginning, and like maybe like communicate with the people that are going before you, like making sure that they introduce, this is Josette and Nev, and then we don't have to feel like, hi, I'm Josette, hi, I'm Nev, like that might interrupt the flow a little bit. I don't know how other people feel about that, but anyway.
Great, lots of wisdom was just shared, so I hope people were taking that in. A lot of really good constructive feedback on the presentations. I think my big overview points, and maybe I'll start with hooks, since we're on hooks, is some of the hooks went by so fast, I don't know what the hooks were, because I didn't even, as someone who's seen these talks several times, I didn't even have time. But the ones that I did catch, I felt like, nice hook, well, I have no time to contemplate, because the whole point of all of the hooks you guys are using were contemplative hooks. they were questions or they were statements that the audience needs to reflect on before you move in. And there was 0 cases in which you gave audience members enough time to think at all about what you just said before you launched into it. So, you know, you got 6 minutes. If you allocate 7 seconds to letting them think about that, you're not really eating into that much of your time, but they need those, like almost uncomfortable for you because your mind, when you're presenting, is probably on double or triple time. So it, for you, should feel uncomfortable by the pause you leave in that, because here's the problem. You guys know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You know what you did. You know what you found. The great challenge in presenting and in education is always empathy with your audience. And I'm so glad that that Lily started this by saying, think about your audience, because that is absolutely the right place to start our thinking and analysis of everything. Every comment is, think about your audience. And I've mentioned this to you before about Kendal people. I always get the comment before I present from John Elder, who's sort of senior figure at Kendal: go slow, speak clearly. We are an older group of people. We need that every time. So it's like, we get that, because he knows we're not going to do that as much as we need to do it. And you guys, even having heard what I said, you're not going to do it as much as you need to do it, but you need to really do that. I'm going to make another point that I've made many. First of all, I like the fact that you guys are really owning your presentations. I encourage you to do that, and you're doing that. A couple people made comments about inconsistency and noisiness, or at least that's how I was interpreting it within them. I think that's very true. Own your presentation, but make it really internally consistent and clean. And think about font size. I mean, we had a bunch of comments on font size, but I noticed some of you have bullets below bullets where they're both the same font size. That doesn't, you want the higher level of the hierarchy to be bigger and the smaller level smaller. A lot of you guys are using sequential reveal effectively. A bunch of you have a lot of bullets showing up at once, which is really hard to take in. Have them come one by one, support what you're saying as you say it. Think carefully about that. I'd say in a general sense, the comment I've made before that I'm going to make again in a big way is way too complex. You have much too much complexity in your presentations. Take at least a third of what you're saying and cut it. You can't get all that information in the time while speaking slowly and clearly. It is not possible. It's impossible. You do not need to tell us everything you told us. You don't need to explain the fullness of what you did. The more you present to us, the less they're going to take in. It absolutely will work that way. The more content, the less they'll remember. Cut it out. Your job here is not to tell them everything you did. It's to tell them a good story that they'll remember. That's it. A good story about what you did that they will remember. It doesn't need to be the complete story. Now, with that said, I felt in a lot of cases like you needed more context. You were assuming that they would know things that they're not going to know. And it goes along with complexity. I think just reducing complexity and providing clearer context about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what the thing is that you're doing. Where's this display case? Just as an example, exactly where is that? What? So just less. Cut. This is not your final report. This is a presentation to a community of wonderful older people in this community who are engaged. Exactly as was said, they like to hear Oberlin students talk about what's important to them. They want a few things that they can remember, not many things. So those are my big points here.
Should we go into individual?
Yeah, we should go into individual ones, but Max wants to make an overall point as well.
I want to ask a question.
Yeah.
What are some specific sections you think, like in general, we could cut? Because we still a lot of us follow the general format to talk about some of the general same things.
Right.
What are specific sections you think would be good to cut?
I think that's I think that's better done on like a, I think let's all think about that as we go through individuals and maybe come up with some suggestions for each other about specific things, because I feel like I can't make it general. I don't think I can respond generally to that question, because I
Depends on the
feel like it's a
project.
specific question. Yeah. Right, but let's all help people think about, as we talk about the different presentations, think in your head, and you guys may understand better than the people who did the project, what do you think is the most important thing for them to convey in their project, as opposed to what they think the most important thing to communicate is? Yeah.
I think our projects and our presentation also was like very like content heavy and like we discussed
Yes.
a lot of like complex
Yeah.
like organizations and relationships between organizations and a lot of stuff that like honestly probably people in Kendal don't give a crap about. So
Right, oh, and certainly aren't gonna remember.
right, so
Yeah.
like was there anything that you guys thought like specifically was
Well, do we
was
wanna
like,
work backwards through the presentation? I'm fine if we do that. We wanna start with the last one and then move forward.
cause I think there was like a lot.
You
that
guys
we
want
just-
some specific feedback? Yeah, go.
So, like for the longest time, I was kind of very confused on what Midtown, like what this assignment, this part of the project was. Like reading, I remember reading at the beginning of the semester, I was kind of like, okay, I kind of get it, but now when I keep seeing it presented over and over again, I'm still kind of confused with entirely what it is. And I feel like where I get the most clarity is when you're talking about just updating the content on both screens. You also talk about some sharing back and forth of content or something like that. And I feel like if you just clarify like, hey, there's new content we're creating, putting it into both these things, and then this content here is going here in addition, I think that would be super helpful. Cause that's the main thing I'm getting is like, I'm like, what are you guys actually doing? And then I feel like that's from what I understood what you guys are actually doing. We're proposing those things, I guess, not actually doing it, but.
I really liked your hook. I remember when you shared it in class and it seemed even better. I think you can cut out, you went into a lot of depth on collaborators and contributors and final products. And I feel like a lot of that would be the language you would use in a final report, especially for your final products. I don't know. There was too much time spent on the final products, especially when it was all like, you're basically advising what to change. I kind of all in the same category.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, this is like one really tiny thing, since they're older people, this is literally just one word change. When you say POC, I feel like you need to just say people of color, cause I don't think the older people are really necessarily gonna catch that and be like, what's that mean? So I feel like one, that just like, instead of using abbreviations, just like state what it is. And then,
You could even say African American and Asian, because
Yeah, I
that's
think
really the
people of color
dominant,
is-
I mean, there are some Latino people there, but I think it's mostly African Americans and Asians in Midtown.
yeah, and then I felt like, a lot of, just like reiterating what other people said, like a lot of it was just, there was just a lot, I was like, I'm trying to like look at the certain section that I was like,
Background visuals.
yeah, I was like,
Was
Yeah.
this transition too much or?
I don't think so. I was like, the one thing that I really like bugged me was the inconsistency. Cause it's like, oh, this is cool, and then you like do the like gray background and I'm like, oh. I was like, I really didn't like that. I was like, it felt like an eyesore compared to like what you had before. I thought that was really cool in the back. So I felt like the outcomes could kind of, instead of desired outcomes, cause this is something you've already been working on, you could like switch that to the end and just say like, just like mention it with your progress, because it's like, we don't really need to know the desired outcomes when you've already like done the project.
Here's what I think the Kendal people wanna know. I think they wanna know that we did something in Oberlin. We created this dashboard concept in Oberlin. Oberlin students were involved in that. It moved into Cleveland, into the Great Lakes Science Center, and was available to the larger Northeast Ohio community. And now, similar to what we did in Oberlin, it's moving into a neighborhood in Cleveland. And you know, your project was to think about how that content, which was initially developed for this Great Lakes Science Center, what kinds of content from that can be ported into their community. I feel like that's what that's what they wanna know and take home with them. I do think the hook sets that up beautifully. I really think it sets it up nicely about, you know, what would a sustainable community look like? But even then, I think you can say, we tried this in Oberlin and we think it's neat in Oberlin. And then we moved into Cleveland in the Great Lakes Science Center.
Okay.
And then now we're moving into Midtown, because that's what they want to hear, is that we created ideas in Oberlin, Ohio that are moving into that moved into Cleveland and are moving around. And that's what they want to know.
Do you think that it would make more sense? I mean, we cut this out for Good Morning Oberlin, but going into like further depth on what exactly is in the story. In the stories, that is like.
It could be, you could say like the Great Lakes Science Center focused on environmental stories that were relevant to an audience primarily composed of kids in Great Lakes Science. Then we moved into the Midtown community and we created stories that were related to Midtown. Now we're trying to figure out how to, you know, kind of mesh these things and bring some of the environmental content into Midtown. And so our project was to really think through, you know, what kind of revisions do we need to that content period, and then how would that content work in this new context? I feel like it's almost, I think one approach I was thinking, and by the way, I think of the groups, I think you have the slickest slides. At least I think you're very slick, your presentation. The background images, the use of background images to sort of subliminally convey ideas, I think is very effective. So I think in a general sense, but I also felt like I was going back and forth between Midtown and Great Lakes Science Center in a way that was kind of confusing me. I feel like more of a sort of historical, we started here, we did this, now we're trying to go into Midtown, and our job was to sort of think about the narratives and how they might port. I just feel like it can be cleaner and simpler and kind of needs to be for this audience. But you've got beautiful content to work with. I think it's really just a matter of figuring out the pruning. Yeah.
Sorry if what I have to say was already mentioned because I had stepped out at the beginning of this, but something I was thinking about was I really like the three-pronged approach, and I feel like Tobias, when you said it, you kind of like didn't emphasize it as much as you could have. You kind of said it a little quietly and quickly, and I don't know, I feel like that's just a very effective way of presenting your points for that slide. So really like strongly being like, we took a three-pronged approach in, you know, I don't know. And then something else I was thinking about was, I also agree that your slides look really good, and I was wondering if like maybe in order to like, I feel like they look really good, but they're all kind of the same. Like, it's just like the text and bullet points with like one or two pictures. And so like, maybe if people aren't super engaged when watching your presentation, they may not notice when slides change. And something that could be good is maybe like switch some of them, like put the text on the right and the images on the left, like every other slide or something. I don't know, that was just a thought. And then one thing I was thinking about as well was also your hook. I really liked the concept of your hook, but I was actually kind of thinking that rephrasing it might make a little more sense, because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like your question wasn't answered very clearly. Like the question was like, what does a resilient community look like? But the answer was just that like effective communication is a critical part of building a resilient community, not like what a resilient community looks like. So maybe instead the question could be like, how can we build resilient communities in the face of climate change or something? Because then saying this is an important part of building resilient communities more directly answers that.
Sure.
What do you think?
But I like that. I mean, I'm not, I mean, you know, it's all open ideas. I like the cleanliness of your slides where there's a lot of consistency. Personally, I think it's one of the cleanest and tightest presentations right now, and I respect you for the clearly a lot of time you put into like getting those things to do that. So I'm not totally sure I'd want things flipping from side to side. I think there's a cleanliness to it that is nice.
Yeah, adding on to that, I agree. I think especially with this group, I think consistency and like for them, like knowing where to look and like knowing what to expect when they're like, at least for your presentation, like, okay, I know that like the most essential bullet points are gonna be on the left and imagery is gonna be on the right. That consistency, I think, is important for them. At least that's my.
And I think your transitional elements cue the reader there's something new up on the screen right now, you know.
We should probably move to the next.
Yeah, we should move to the next one. Let's do it. All right, yes, let's do that. Thank you. Thank you for keeping us on task.
Yeah, we
That's
have
your
about
job.
5 minutes.
Total?
Yeah, 5 minutes per group.
Oh, okay,
to discuss.
good, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you wanna take the timer and time us all as we move? Okay, all right, your job, Hannah, is to keep us on task. So moving up. So nice, great stuff to work with, and that's true of all of you. There's great stuff to work with. So, okay, moving on up. Or the orb.
Yeah, one of the first things I wanna say is I don't think it's really great to have the hex codes because I feel like the old people are gonna get confused, like, what does that mean? Or they're not gonna be able to read it. So I just feel like cause I know you guys wanna show the colors and then put the characters on. So I just feel like taking out the hex codes and just having the colors would be really good for that.
Let's say you go.
I hard disagree. I like the hex codes because it might, I don't know how visual impairment works totally, but it might be hard to differentiate between some of the purples and stuff, and I think that people know what, I feel like hex codes are common knowledge.
I do not think that
Really?
retired people in Kendal know what hex
Okay.
codes are.
Never mind.
Absolutely,
I was like-
100% do not.
I would also, I would agree with removing them also because you guys don't talk about them.
Yeah.
Like,
why are there two?
yeah, you never mentioned that those are the, I don't know, maybe I missed it, but I don't think I heard you guys ever say anything about the color codes. You just said that there are different colors.
There's no way in hell that retired people in Kendal know what those hex codes are.
Yeah, I think it's, they're just a little distracting and confusing, and so just having that image be about the different colors and not the color codes would be more effective.
Egos.
Yeah, I would take it a little further too. I think the difference between the dark green and the gray is too subtle to I don't know, there's something that's clashing about it for me. If you could take out the bubbles and also the hex codes and display the bubbles, I'm just without the gray background, I think that would be more appealing. I also on the first slide, the flashing orb was kind of
Oh, I just changed it.
oh, okay. I was gonna say, it was kind of stressing me
It
out.
totally stressed me out. I couldn't pay any attention to
But
you.
if you
Yeah.
have a video
Oh.
of it, a video of the orb strobing that you could change the speed of, I think that would be better than just. the
I don't think you
subwoofer.
can talk while it's doing that, though. That could go well with your prompt at the start, your hook at the start, if you say, can you imagine a world in which, colors, and then just let it do that and say nothing, but I don't think you can talk while it's doing that.
changed it to just land on one.
Yeah.
If there's a way to make it just be slowly transitioning.
Yeah, and this photograph's the movement of the thing around in space is just, it's gonna send people into epileptic fits. Honest to God will, yeah.
Max, your explanation of the orb operation on that same slide with the hex codes that we were just talking about was a lot better. Cause I don't know, I wasn't paying as much attention the other times, but I think it was better. Because you didn't say it went from red to orange to yellow to green. You were it went from the lowest or the highest to normal usage, and it was very slow and concise, and it was good. But you said, at the end of the presentation, you said 74% of the time, students understood exactly which color the orb was communicating, which doesn't make sense. It's exactly which amount of resource use the orb was communicating.
Gotcha, yeah.
I don't like the inclusion of this poster just because I feel like it's too much. They're gonna be trying to read that and they're not gonna hear what you're saying because they're gonna be like, is this important? I don't think it should be included just because there's too much on it.
So I just include the QR code?
Yeah, maybe just that, just to
I don't even
simplify
think
things.
you need the QR code.
Well, they might not know what QR codes are.
I just think, I'm just gonna go back to what I said about the previous group and every group. Your story can and should be a lot simpler. What do the Kendal people need to know? They need to know that Oberlin pioneered this concept of using colors to convey energy and water use in dormitories. We've developed a new kind of orb and we need to make sure that people can interpret what those colors mean. Our job was to do some testing to see whether people could measure effectively detect what the orbs were intended to mean. And we found that they could, and what's more, we found that it increased their interest. That's the story. Anything like outside of that, lots of details on anything, not relevant. That's the story.
Final comment, I did not notice when you guys changed these posters, so I feel like you need to give a couple seconds before you change, cause I was like, I literally did not realize when you changed.
Yeah, you can even just point at those two and say, watch these,
Yeah.
and then change it.
Yeah.
Were you actually, but I mean, the person on the right, like have their
Yeah,
fingers
cause I was
under
like,
it.
yeah.
Like, we're talking.
Yeah,
we're
I also
talking-
didn't really notice
wa-
that.
We're talking, watch these two,
Hmm.
and then switch it, so there, there's no ambiguity, it's not like, watch the couple, just like put your fingers on them and say, watch these two. But, like I say, I think the story I just told is the story that they're gonna remember if you cut out a lot of the details,
We have to
otherwise they'll
move
remember
on.
none of it.
Next
Moving on?
Okay, let's see. I think your environmental orbs, if you feel so inclined, should be the last element of the display case that you talk
Yes.
about to transition to the
I agree,
environmental
that's
orbs.
what I said.
And then what does it mean that you're gonna spotlight appliances that are being measured? I didn't really understand.
I was trying to figure out how to word that so that people could understand, I guess, but basically we worried that like people wouldn't be able to tell what the kilowatt meter was actually displaying, like what appliance it was displaying at the time, because it rotates through, and so the spotlight would spotlight the light up the appliance that it's currently.
We can also, like, for simplicity, we can also just cut that.
Can you have a slide that has like appliances on it, right?
This one?
No,
Oh,
it's
no, oh, I
one
remember.
that focuses,
This one.
yeah, this one. You could have put a little meter on here, and it could just be a dial meter, it doesn't even need to have much on it. That just sort of like, you highlight different things and have it move to just, I mean, that's just a thought. If you wanna sort of like, I'm not sure you wanna do that, but I'm just saying as a way of like showing people that, have a little meter on that one that sort of, highlight, put an outline around different things and have it move. But again, I'm not totally sure how central that is.
Oh. I was like, the different size and text between this is bothering me now. I was like, so just be consistent with that too.
Oh, wait,
Yes.
you guys explained like who the empathetic character gauges were, which would be a nice touch, except I think it should be your group that should
Yeah.
explain it. So I think like you guys should explain it, and then you guys should take it out, and it's like that has something to do with like the quality of your presentation. Cause I think that you guys had a really good explanation of it. I just think that whoever like really introduces it first should be the one to explain it, and I think it's you guys who use it first. And then also like you could save time, maybe talk about something else. Cause and also, John, do you talk about it like at the beginning?
Not
Okay.
enough for me, no.
So then I think that you guys should just like swap. I think that would be a good.
You guys up for that, taking on, we use these Wally and
Yeah.
Flash, these empathetic, because I do think it's important that they get explained. And then you guys, I think you guys can say, we also are using, well, like, to be consistent with them, we're also using,
It's like personally, I think the goals should be earlier versus like the last slide. I don't know, I just feel like they should be mentioned earlier on, so like they have like those like what you're trying to get at in mind while you're like explaining things. Yeah.
maybe these are more products than goals
Yeah,
too.
that's what I was thinking
Yeah.
too. Just like
Yeah.
rename it to products.
Okay. Yeah, I
That's
kind
a
of like,
stark white.
I don't know, I kind of like it at the end.
Me too. I don't know
But-
if anyone else.
But maybe it's not goals, maybe it's
Yeah,
products.
I was gonna say if we can
Yeah.
get to products.
Yeah, I think that made more
So
sense.
this is what this is the outcome, or maybe just outcomes.
Quick thing, I think the spacing is is it like inconsistent or is it like an illusion? Maybe
It
it's an
looks
illusion.
I think it's because it hangs over. I was also looking at that, but I'll play around with it, so. Okay.
Oh, I was like.
But other than that,
Maybe it's left justifying your titles on that one, go to that one.
Oh, yeah.
I think the white is really stark, by the way.
Yeah,
I just think,
I-
but maybe yours, maybe
Kind of
left
playing around with it,
justifying.
like, I
And
don't think
are you
so.
consistent in all your fonts within
Dun, dun,
presentations?
dun.
I think their fonts are
I like
consistent, it's just the sizing is kind of.
like
Little
within
bit.
each presentation or
No,
No.
I'm within presentations, yeah. I personally, I like left-hand justifications and I hate it when you like get a carryover.
Yeah, cause this could be one line
Oh, yeah.
and then
Is it
smaller.
resource use orbs?
Orb.
Yes, cause then it
Yeah.
should be, cause it's like, seems like resource use and then orbs as opposed to resource use orbs. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, can you go back, we're still in the case one, right?
Yeah.
Give me to the slide that has the overall background to it. I feel like I want clear, like, you have a bunch of different thematic components. I want those thematic components explained and probably dropped on top of this. So you start with this one and then you drop like maybe numbered thematic components, like this is where we're gonna have, so this is the background of our case, and in our case, we're gonna have a section here, which is on, or a section here that's on appliances, a section, so that I'm getting like what you're gonna show me, this is providing me an outline of what I'm gonna see next as you explain each of the sections of what you're doing here. Are you completely confused by what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying,
I just
I
feel like
guess I'm
I
just
never get a
concerned
clear
about-
outline of what are the things we're highlighting,
I
what are
thought
the
that
sections?
if you go up in the slide before, I thought that was what we.
Yeah, I just want this, you've got them numbered, I want a numbered list of them and then the numbers to be repeated when you go back and explain them into detail. I want a thing up front to provide an outline for me of where I'm going and then
Oh, I see how you
consistency.
mean. Okay.
Consistency, so an outline of these are the central things, stories we're trying to tell within this case. And they're all numbered, and then I'm gonna go through those numbers and explain them in a little bit more detail.
Gotcha.
So really you might wanna update the mock-up,
So-
cause you also have solar energy in it, so.
I had like a really quick feedback. Yeah. What was the last stuff? For just like that in general, like that blue color, it works well for that, but like if you keep going, like. I just feel like if it's not, I feel like for all the other slides, it's very harsh.
the black on blue, it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
don't
think
like
it's
it.
specifically the pictures of this, of you guys interacting with the kiosk, like it kind of gives it a weird look,
I don't know, or just choose something more like neutral.
like that.
Yeah, it's saturated, like what?
I like the blue.
Like,
I don't
just
know, the
blue, but, like,
saturation
maybe
of
like
the
a more
image
of
is
like a
weird.
baby blue, like, yeah.
Yeah, like a lighter blue.
What is the blue we use in the presentation? You might do that.
Well, that's the blue that we're mimicking, I think.
Like,
here.
I understand why.
I'm pretty sure it's color drop, but we can make it like less
Yeah,
saturated.
you might need to, I was like, sometimes like the color is appearing differently on my computer than it is on the smart board too, so it does that. Like when you present, so just make it lighter so it appears lighter to the audience too.
Not to insult you guys, but I'm assuming that you guys just didn't get that far in preparing this presentation.
No, this
And
is
just-
like
that was pretty
These
clearly the
last
case,
3
and that's,
days are like.
that's okay, that's not meant as a
Yeah.
criticism, it's just meant as an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Fine, that's where you guys are. I feel like it's too noisy having both of these in here. This does well, this confuses me having
Yeah.
this one, just have this one.
Or like zoom
You know.
in a lot on the.
I just don't think you get more by having both,
Yeah.
like, yes, you can see the titles on that, you can see them well enough on this one, and I just feel like it's just, it's too noisy. And I feel like that's true on the, like, this thing came up, I don't know, the one that I liked best, and again, I know you guys are still at an earlier stage than most people in like transiting, and again, that's not meant as a criticism. This is the one I like the best, because it's simple, next. It's simple, it's like easy on the eyes, it's like, yes.
One thing I had to say, I was like, and I understand like you didn't develop your slides as much as you wanted to. Jane, you were like saying things that weren't on the slides, so then I was like, that could definitely be distracting to older
We
people.
knew that though, yeah, that's
Yeah.
because of where you guys are, that's
Yeah.
fine, yeah, cause it definitely was not the case that what was on the slides was mimicking what you were saying, I was just assuming,
It's the
yeah,
good
you
morning
guys just
Oberlin
didn't get that
presentation.
far, and it's just fine. Yeah. Even this one, it's just too much, like all three of those on, it's just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to look at on here, it's just like.
I feel
it's-
like it should just be this one, I really
Yeah, it's like,
that
and this one
one.
has moving parts in it, so it's just,
It's really
I
engaging.
don't know why, what is beneficial to having all three of those on at the
Yeah,
same
well,
time, I
when I
guess is my
tried to show
question.
them one at a time, it was tricky because I was changing the slide and you guys were like, no, you need to leave it up there longer. And this way I talked for a while and they're all three components, text, graphics,
I was
and the data visualization are all up together.
Well, maybe
Yeah, I was
just
gonna
less.
say, I liked how you were like stories and that appeared and then graphics and data, like I like how it
It doesn't
appeared
one at a
as you
time.
said it. I think that was effective.
But even so, it's like you end up with all of them up at the same, and I just feel like, what's the benefit of it?
Oh, so
I think it would be cool to like find like an actual slide in like the graphics
Mhm.
and just have like one that has all three elements and then just point to different parts of the picture.
Yeah, or a sequential reveal of the content within it as opposed to three different kinds of visual components. And by the way, although that one does have motion on it, I do not feel like that one nails me in the way the orb did. I feel like I can handle it.
yeah, I was like, I really
Partly
like
because it's
it.
just a repeat, it's like
Yeah, and it's
not
really
a-
slow moving too.
Yeah, it just does not feel painful in the same way.
The board was like seizure prone.
I'm not gonna have a seizure.
Seizure warning. Please don't have a seizure.
I should be on a hug. You want a seizure? Sorry.
Listen, the guy who's gonna be introducing us is just out of the hospital, so be careful. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the comments about like more sequential revealing images. Also, I noticed on the title slide, it's a different color and I think I'd like to see it all one color. But B, it is a Great Lakes Science Center, like that's the Great Lakes Science Center mural, right?
Yeah, good point. We
It
could just
is.
screenshot the thing and then put it on like
It
the
is.
icons.
Yeah, if you guys happen to change it, I would love to use that graphic for Great Lakes Science Center's presentation.
Yeah, well, are we deciding we'll do that now? Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah.
If you
Okay.
guys, if you
It is a
happen
great
to
image,
not
I mean, I
use
love
it,
the image,
it's
someone
so
should use
bright.
that as an intro image, and it is Cleveland in the background, so it does kind of make more sense.
Okay.
It is
Next
beautiful though.
Alright, we're moving on.
I, yeah, just because we went so far over time, I think general feedback that would be really helpful. What sections of the presentation were engaging and what sections do you feel like were unnecessary? Because I feel like, Sadie, if you agree, we need to like at least cut like one entire section just to trim down on time.
You guys got a lot of feedback coming your way.
Call
I was like,
yeah, then Max.
Okay, I feel like the most text heavy slides are like less engaging, cause I was like, you could still say some of the things like on this slide, but like just have it less text intensive. Like I really like the visual slides, like when you're still like talking, cause we can still understand what's going on, and I really like the quotes. It's just like there was just so much content, and like this can like seem a little overwhelming too, cause you have like longer sentences too, so it's just like a lot at you. So I feel like you could just cut down on that more and just like say more versus having more on the screen, you know?
Okay, so like outcomes and our goals, really text heavy and therefore less engaging for you?
Yeah, and the main takeaways, I feel like some of it is a little like redundant. I made a comment on that. I was like, I feel like the goals and lasting impacts were pretty redundant, like you were kind of saying the same thing,
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
yeah. You said Max next, I think.
Yes.
So what I found, the two things I found most engaging and that I remembered from this, especially looking back on it now, was just the images. I got to see you guys in the classroom doing things. I feel like was really engaging. And so I feel like kind of echo what Hannah said, the more you can focus on images like you do here versus text is great. And then maybe that can help with cutting down, like cut down a few text slides, make it into one image slide, and then talk about this subject for like a little bit versus a lot and elongating it. And the other thing was the especially actually with images, or like an exception to that, is that one slide we had water and electricity. I feel like that was very engaging. Yeah, this slide right here, I was like,
Okay.
looking at the sentence, I'm like, I don't really understand what's happening here. And then you said it, and I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. And this is like the central question you want like the students to really like grapple with. And then also like its implications, but like this is the center.
This
and the
slide
start
was
of it.
very good.
Yeah.
And then I had another thing, but I'm blanking now. There was a third thing that was important. Oh, the quotes. I really like the quotes because they really showed a personal side of it that was really helpful.
Well, they showed you
in
had an
just
impact.
elaborating like what the impact was. I feel like this was great for the impact. And having said that, I think this did a much better job than the graphs you were showing earlier that the students made and then that you made. I feel like there's a purpose behind that, but I couldn't really understand exactly what that was. You shared it and it was cool, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I now understand something more. Well,
I
feel
think
like
you
those
could cut
quotes.
all those text slides, honestly,
Yeah.
every one of them, 21 through 27 or 26. Yeah,
Anyway, somebody else now.
you guys go. Up to-
Yeah, I thought like, if I'm putting myself in the shoes of the Kendal people, the most effective slides for the Kendal people would be the quotes at sort of at the end as like, this is the impact that we had. I love the first one with the really simple, clear, like what is our water and energy use. And like honestly, if you could like nix a lot of just the like text slides, I think your presentation overall, like your presentation overall, I don't even know if it like needs a lot of those text slides.
Yeah.
Just like visually for me. And if I'm thinking about like someone in Kendal, like I would be a lot more engaged with like.
Nev wants to go, you go.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this in the comments, but I think you really don't need to say our main takeaways. I think honestly, like these quotes are a really good place to end for me. And then I think we've kind of said this, but focus on the outcomes, not the goals. Like I know I would say like combine those, like, yeah, just really focus on the outcomes. And I don't think if there's specific goals you have in mind, like see how you can address those as outcomes, rather like, yeah, I think that just to cut some stuff and yeah.
I agree with what Nev said, like completely cut out our main takeaway slides. And then, yeah, I think the goals and the outcomes can be combined. For the slide where you show the chart of combined electricity use in different locations, I think that can be cut to just say, the use of color in these graphs are, make it more accessible and understandable for people to see. Doesn't need to be that long of an explanation. And then for the quotes, I think the one about the kilowatts can be cut because you guys already talk about like how the kilowatts is the favorite part, that like it's the kids' favorite part, so that can be cut. And then it could just be 2 quotes and that's it.
Okay, any really quick other things? Otherwise, I think we're good. We've got enough to cut down on.
You can, Audrey.
Yeah, when you're doing the student predictions, the data visualizations, I would like put that graph in the next one as well, so we can actually like compare the two. I do like how you like highlighted the area that they're supposed to talk about. But yeah, the transition was weird in that one. Also take out not too shabby. The text.
Okay, so we got 4 minutes till the end of class time, so.
All right, community voices.
I was like drinking coffee at midnight.
Not too shabby.
One,
I was like,
Oh,
go to bias.
We have to go straight to community voices here, yes.
the one like thing that I noticed that stuck out for me was, I don't know if you use the word cesspool,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
heard
not-
cesspool.
That doesn't mean.
Yeah, I know, I was.
Which you might not wanna use to
Yeah.
describe.
That's confused by that.
I think you just meant like. pool.
Yeah, no, that's what I literally meant.
That's, yeah, you just don't wanna use that word.
I heard that, and I'm like.
No, you're good.
Like, yeah, that was like my main, the gripe.
All right,
Matt,
quick,
Well,
quick
Matt's,
cut, okay,
yeah, Matt's.
quick
Oh,
though.
quick, next slide. When the white graphic in the background, the text
Yeah.
overlap, it's really conflicting to me.
Yeah.
And having also the white things in the corners in my eyes go like all over the place.
Yeah.
And so I feel like having it fit so that it doesn't do that would be great
All right, we're gonna just do a go around on the
Okay.
easiest.
on all slides.
For me, this font is just like, it's a hard pass, like the letters are just too close together, I can't read it.
Hard font,
Me, yeah.
that's good.
In that same vein, I think this is a good example of when the text can be shrunk a little bit. I think the text is too big here.
Okay.
I say open with the question and then go to your title slide because I feel like the question is the hook. And then you can introduce your topic.
That's
Oh,
great,
yeah.
that's great, yes.
I'm not a big fan of the theme. I find it distracting. And also like the other comments, the difference between the text, like make the text more like the actual community voices text. because
It
that-
is comfort
clashes a
ta is the
lot.
text that we use as our, if you wanna use our text, it's comfort ta. I agree, it's like, it seems inconsistent, the theme is, yeah, the theme is very different from the theme of the
Yeah.
project.
Could you write these ideas down somewhere? My computer's frozen. Thanks.
Okay, okay,
Also, I know my transition into Rosa's slide was a little choppy, just cause like I hadn't prepped that part and we kind of completely rearranged the way we were presenting. And so I needed to practice that. If anybody has thoughts about that?
I think you should have more slides and less, more slides up front and just less
Like more
talking
community
about what you
voices.
did, just more community voices slides and just, I just felt like you provided, you know, the essence is, we wanted to feature students who volunteer in the community and the people who they volunteer for and build social norms around that, and we created some great content out of that. I think that's the message you want them to take home.
I also think you should change the last slide. I think some of us had some critiques about using someone using a Gandhi quote, and I know some of the other ones that you showed last week really were way stronger as a good ending slide.
I also, yeah, I was thinking about that, but forgot to discuss it with you, Hannah, but I don't know if the Gandhi quote is a good thing to use.
I think that the Gandhi quote would resonate well with the Kendal audience
Maybe, yeah.
personally, but to each their own, like yeah.
I don't know, I know Gandhi is like a very divisive figure and a lot of Kendal residents are former professors, so they might have problems with it.
We'll let you guys decide what
I
you
don't
want
think
to do
anyone in that
with
generation
Gandhi.
sees Gandhi as like.
Yeah,
not
I
as
mean, I don't
divisive,
know, I don't
quite
know.
frankly.
Yeah, you guys decide. One last comment, yes?
Yeah, I really liked when you introduced the people in the pictures.
Yes, make it personal. All right, we are wrapping for the moment here. One last comment is, I think we need more thought going into the transitions between presentations. Get those in the script, and I want to leave the responsibility on that on two parties. You as a presenter are responsible for introducing the next group, but write down your transition, and you as next group modify that transition in a way that you like to lead into yours so that we get good, clean transitions. We have less of that this year than we've had in the past. I just want to say, people have put more time into thinking about how do I get from my presentation to the next one? So this comes across as one big presentation rather than lots of separate presentations. So give that more thought and time.
Oh yeah, I think like some of the title slides were still numbered, which I think needs to be removed. I was like, I think the SIP one was still numbered, like I had the
I
three in
think
front of it.
I think they're all numbered, aren't
Are you
they?
gonna be
No,
around?
they're not all numbered, only like a couple are numbered, and we said we wanted it to be a presentation of the first separate ones, like making the numbers out. That's just what I think, if you wanna do it.
Yeah, just like.
Oh, just one last comment. Do think about what you, let's just circle back to making sure that you dress professionally for this final presentation in a way that respects the people of Kendal. Yeah.
I think so.
I'm free all day Sunday.
All right,
How would you like us to?
how do we get into that?
Would you like us to like
Eventually.
say something or what would you prefer?
Well, we're gonna go into Q&A after that. Probably the easiest thing to do is to send it back to me, and then I can say something nice about the work of the group.
Okay, yeah.
And that's probably the easiest transition. I mean, if we had more time, we could think about you guys facilitating that, which I'd be okay with, but I just feel like probably the easiest thing is
Sorry. Yeah, I forgot.
is
Oh, wait,
for
no,
you guys to
sorry.
send it back to me.
No.
And let's just think about, like, so put a transition in. I mean, what would be nice, I think, is if you could make some comment about
We could meet
the
like.
class, like if you made a comment on behalf of the class as you close, you know, I just wanna say how much we appreciate, how much we've learned to appreciate the
Okay.
Oberlin and the
I'll just look at your
communities
Google Calendar.
as a result of this class,
Okay,
we
let's
really
meet
appreciate,
tonight
you know,
and then
something
let's
of the
meet on
order of,
Okay.
just sort of like
Sounds good.
class-wide appreciation from students before passing
Bye,
it to me.
Sammy.
Does that, do you feel like you guys can pull that off that I just
I have
described?
to run to class.
Okay, no, that's great, but you got that, okay.
Not really.
Well, Audrey, you got that? That makes sense to you and you will try it?
Yes.
Okay.
And you'll tell me.
I'll
Okay.
figure it out.
Okay,
Yeah.
So.
I'm gonna add something to my just.
Okay.
Like me to like explain what you
You need to sort of like a class-wide, an expression.
Applies that leading technology online.
Yeah, just to say to the Kendal group,
Right.
you know, we're the final
And then I changed
presentation.
slides.
And I just wanna say on behalf of the class, how much we appreciate the opportunity to share our work.
I feel like that's part of it, but I don't think that's the point of
Community.
it.
Yes.
On behalf of.
Yeah, on behalf of the class to the Kendal community. Yeah, it's as
It's
simple
part
as
of the
that, I
process,
think.
but that's not really part of the story.
And then you can say, I'm
I feel
gonna
like
turn this
I
back
feel like
over
what I can
to,
do instead is that
good
that
job.
leads
Okay,
you
yeah,
to
makes sense. Thank
explain
you.
more than
Yeah.
that leads to the environmental dashboard. So students will, if they scan the QR code, they'll be learning more about their buildings and.
Sammy or Jane left this, I was like, it was behind the chairs that we're sitting in.
Oh.
Also, we're way under.
Thank you.